The Zephyrian Empire had, for approximately 3 millennia, maintained the delightful fiction that they were the galaxy's designated babysitters. Their self-appointed mission? To graciously determine when lesser species had evolved enough brain cells to deserve the honor of joining galactic civilization. It was a thankless job, really, watching primitive creatures bang rocks together and occasionally discovering fire, but someone had to maintain standards. The Empire's Stellar Academy produced the finest cadets in the known universe, at least according to their own extensively self-congratulatory literature. These cadets were trained in advanced surveillance techniques, diplomatic protocols, and most importantly, the fine art of condescending observation. After all, one couldn't simply waltz up to a primitive species and announce their presence. That would be gauche. No, proper first contact required years of careful study, meticulous documentation, and the kind of bureaucratic overthinking that would make a tax auditor weep with joy. Cadet Vex Kalar of the 3rd Reconnaissance Division had spent 4 years at the Academy, learning exactly how superior he was to every other life form in the galaxy. His graduation thesis, Primitive Tool Usage, a study in intellectual stagnation, had earned him the highest honors and a posting to the Empire's most prestigious assignment, Earth Surveillance. Humanity, according to the files, represented the perfect test case for a rookie observer. They were sufficiently advanced to be interesting, yet primitive enough that even the most incompetent cadet couldn't possibly mess up their assessment. The mission briefing had been refreshingly straightforward. Earth's inhabitants had recently developed what they laughingly called advanced technology. Crude rockets, primitive computing devices, and communication networks that would have been embarrassing in the Zephyrian Bronze Age. The humans showed promise, certainly, but they were still centuries away from being worthy of contact. Vex Kalar's job was simply to observe, document, and file a routine report confirming their continued primitive status. Easy marks for a stellar career trajectory. His ship, the Nebular Whisper, represented the pinnacle of Zephyrian engineering. Equipped with quantum phase cloaking, neural interface controls, and security systems that could theoretically withstand assault by a small army, it was more than adequate for monitoring a species that had only recently figured out how to put satellites in orbit. The craft's AI possessed the collective knowledge of 17 civilizations and spoke 400 languages. Its defensive capabilities could level a city block if necessary, though Vex Kalar couldn't imagine why that would ever be relevant on a simple observation mission. The landing in what humans charmingly called suburbia went flawlessly. Vex Kalar chose a quiet residential area where his cloaked ship would attract no attention, parking it behind what appeared to be a primitive dwelling. The neighborhood looked suitably boring, identical structures arranged in predictable patterns, crude transportation vehicles lined up like sleeping beasts, and the occasional human engaging in mysterious rituals involving vegetation maintenance. From his initial observations, Vex Kalar felt supremely confident. The humans wandered about their daily routines with the blissful ignorance of creatures who had no idea they were being watched by their intellectual superiors. They operated crude mechanical devices, consumed processed nutrients, and engaged in primitive social bonding behaviors. Occasionally, smaller humans would emerge from the dwellings and engage in seemingly random physical activities that served no apparent survival purpose. The cadet dutifully noted these behaviors as examples of recreational energy expenditure, typical of species with excess resource allocation. His surveillance equipment, naturally, was state-of-the-art. Microcameras that could observe through walls, audio collectors sensitive enough to detect whispered conversations from 3 kilometers away, and analytical processors capable of interpreting behavioral patterns with startling accuracy. Within hours, Vex Kalar had compiled comprehensive data on human sleeping patterns, nutritional habits, and social hierarchies. The report practically wrote itself. Humans were a developing species, showing moderate promise, but requiring at least another few centuries of evolution before they could handle advanced galactic concepts. The security system protecting his ship was, according to Academy standards, absolutely foolproof. Quantum encrypted locks, neural recognition protocols, and defensive barriers that would activate at the first sign of unauthorized approach. Even if a human somehow detected the cloaked vessel, they would find it impossible to access. The technology gap was simply too vast. It would be like expecting a Bronze Age warrior to hack a quantum computer. Unfortunately for Vex Kalar, 12-year-old Marcus Chen had never attended the academy, and therefore remained blissfully unaware that what he was attempting was impossible. Marcus had been having a spectacularly boring summer until he spotted what was obviously the coolest thing ever parked behind the Hendersons' garage. It looked like someone had crossed a sports car with a spaceship and added enough glowing bits to power a small city. The kid's first thought wasn't impossible alien technology, but rather, someone in the neighborhood has serious money and questionable taste. His second thought was, I wonder if anyone would notice if I took a closer look. Now, the Zephyrian security system had been designed to repel armed invasion forces, trained infiltrators, and sophisticated technological attacks. It had not, however, been programmed to deal with a seventh grader who approached problems with the casual confidence of someone who had never encountered a locked door he couldn't eventually defeat. While the ship's sensors detected Marcus's approach, his complete lack of hostile intent, advanced weaponry, or even basic understanding of what he was looking at caused the system to categorize him as a non-threatening local fauna. Marcus examined the ship's exterior with the methodical curiosity of a kid who had grown up taking apart every electronic device in the house. The glowing panels looked like touch screens. The seamless hull suggested hidden access points, and the whole thing hummed with the kind of subtle energy that made his teeth itch in an interesting way. When he found what looked like a handprint scanner, he pressed his palm against it with the casual assumption that cool tech should respond to cool people. The Zephyrian neural interface, designed to read the brainwaves of authorized personnel, encountered Marcus's 12-year-old mind and experienced something roughly equivalent to a computer trying to process the concept of purple. The kid's thoughts were a chaotic mixture of excitement, curiosity, and half-remembered action movies, completely unlike anything in the system's database. After several microseconds of electronic confusion, the AI made what seemed like a reasonable decision. If this entity's mental patterns were too alien to categorize, it must be a previously unknown form of authorized Zephyrian personnel. The ship opened with a satisfied chime. Marcus stepped inside and immediately decided that whoever owned this thing had watched all the same sci-fi movies he had. The interior looked exactly like what a spaceship should look like. Glowing control panels, seats that seemed to mold themselves to his body, and a holographic display that activated the moment he sat down. Text scrolled across the screen in what looked like alien symbols, but helpfully translated itself into English as soon as Marcus squinted at it. "Welcome, Commander," the ship's AI announced in a voice that sounded like every movie computer ever. "Shall I initiate pre-flight procedures?" Marcus grinned. This was either the most elaborate video game setup ever created, or someone in the neighborhood had serious connections. Either way, he was absolutely going to find out what all the buttons did. Meanwhile, Vex Kalar was learning that human residential areas were more complex than his training had suggested. The creatures seemed to follow predictable patterns during certain time periods, but their behavior became chaotic and unpredictable when smaller humans were involved. He was in the middle of documenting what appeared to be a territorial dispute over recreational equipment when his wrist communicator began emitting a sound he had never heard before, the Nebular Whisper's theft alarm. For several seconds, Vex Kalar stared at the device in confusion. The alarm was indicating that his ship, his heavily secured, quantum-encrypted, absolutely impregnable ship, was not only being accessed by an unauthorized entity, but was actually moving. This was so far outside the realm of possibility that his first assumption was equipment malfunction. That assumption lasted until he spotted his vessel rising slowly above the suburban roofline, glowing like a miniature star and broadcasting what sounded suspiciously like human laughter on the emergency frequency. Marcus had discovered that the ship responded to his thoughts almost as well as his hands. The control system seemed to interpret his intentions and translate them into actions, which meant that thinking up would be cool resulted in a smooth vertical ascent that provided an amazing view of the neighborhood. The AI kept asking about flight plans and mission parameters, but Marcus figured that was just part of the game's immersive experience. What he didn't realize was that his casual experimentation was being interpreted by the ship's systems as a series of increasingly sophisticated tactical maneuvers. His random button-pressing activated long-range sensors, defensive protocols, and communication arrays that began broadcasting on frequencies monitored by half the galaxy. When Marcus thought it might be fun to see how fast the thing could go, the Nebular Whisper's AI dutifully engaged its stellar drive, accelerating to a significant fraction of light speed before Marcus decided that maybe going slower would be better for sightseeing. The ship's automatic navigation systems, meanwhile, logged this as an impressive display of tactical restraint worthy of an experienced commander. Back on the ground, Vex Kalar was experiencing what humans might recognize as a complete emotional breakdown, though Zephyrians preferred to call it temporary cognitive reorganization due to impossible circumstances. His ship was not only stolen, it was being piloted with a skill level that suggested his thief was either a veteran Zephyrian commander or something so far beyond human capability that his entire understanding of Earth's development level needed immediate revision. The situation became exponentially worse when his emergency communicator began receiving incoming transmissions from other ships. Apparently, the Nebular Whisper's Joyride had been detected by vessels from at least 6 different species, all of whom were demanding to know why the Zephyrian Empire was conducting unauthorized flight demonstrations in restricted space. The Altarian Confederation was particularly upset, having interpreted Marcus's loop-de-loops as some form of aggressive territorial display. Vex Kalar's attempts to explain that this was all a misunderstanding were hampered by the fact that he had no idea how to explain the situation without admitting that his supposedly primitive surveillance subjects had somehow stolen and successfully operated technology that should have been completely beyond their comprehension. Marcus, meanwhile, was having the time of his life. The ship had shown him 3 different stars. Systems let him take pictures of what looked like actual alien cities, and responded to every random command with enthusiasm that suggested it was as bored as he had been before finding it. The AI seemed particularly excited about something called defensive maneuvers, so Marcus let it show him a few, which involved swooping between asteroids and performing barrel rolls that would have made any fighter pilot weep with envy. What Marcus interpreted as a fun flying lesson, every other ship in the sector read as a masterful display of combat piloting by an obviously experienced warrior. The casual way the human child navigated through asteroid fields while maintaining perfect formation suggested a level of spatial awareness that even veteran pilots found intimidating. The situation reached peak absurdity when Marcus, growing slightly bored with spaceflight, decided to see if the ship had any games. His exploration of the entertainment systems accidentally activated the vessel's cultural database, which began broadcasting what it interpreted as a diplomatic greeting. Unfortunately, Marcus's 12-year-old commentary on the various alien species appearances, "Those guys look like angry lobsters," and "Why does everyone in space have tentacles?" was transmitted across subspace as what appeared to be an official Zephyrian diplomatic assessment. By the time Vex Kalar managed to establish communication with his stolen ship, the galactic situation had deteriorated to the point where 3 different species were demanding formal apologies. 2 others were requesting emergency alliance meetings, and the Crystalline Collective had apparently decided that humans represented either a significant military threat or the galaxy's most entertainingly chaotic new comedy act. "Commander," Marcus said when Vex Kalar finally got through on the communication system, "this is a really cool game, but I think I'm supposed to be home for dinner soon." The conversation that followed was possibly the most surreal diplomatic negotiation in galactic history. Vex Kalar, operating under the assumption that he was dealing with some form of human super soldier, attempted to use formal diplomatic protocols to recover his ship. Marcus, who thought he was talking to another player or possibly an NPC, cheerfully agreed to bring the ship back as soon as he figured out how to land it without breaking anything. The landing, when it finally occurred, was actually more graceful than most Academy graduates could manage. Marcus had spent the flight back experimenting with the ship's automated systems, accidentally learning advanced piloting techniques that would have taken a trained cadet months to master. He parked the Nebular Whisper in exactly the same spot where he had found it, shut down the systems with casual efficiency, and emerged with the satisfied expression of someone who had just had the best afternoon of his life. "Thanks for letting me borrow your ride," he told the still stunned Vex Kalar. "That was awesome. Is it some kind of experimental military thing? Because if you guys are recruiting, I'm definitely interested when I'm old enough." Marcus wandered off toward his house, already planning to tell his friends about the incredibly realistic flight simulator he had found, leaving Vex Kalar standing next to his ship with the expression of someone whose entire understanding of the universe had been quietly rearranged by a 12-year-old. The mission report, when Vex Kalar finally managed to write it, became an instant classic at the Academy, not for its insights into human development, but for its inadvertent documentation of what happened when Zephyrian arrogance encountered human unpredictability. The cadets' carefully worded assessment that humans represent a species of unusual adaptive capability and should be approached with extreme caution was filed under Diplomatic Incidents, Unusual, and became required reading for all future Earth assignments. The galactic community's response to the Marcus incident was equally confused. Humanity was quietly reclassified from primitive species under observation to chaotic neutral entities requiring monitoring, with a special note that their children appeared to possess instinctive understanding of advanced technology, coupled with absolutely no awareness of appropriate safety protocols. Vex Kalar's career, surprisingly, recovered quite well from the incident. His inadvertent discovery that humans could operate Zephyrian technology with minimal training led to a complete revision of first contact protocols and earned him a promotion to the Xenological Research Division. He never requested another Earth assignment. Marcus Chen continued to have perfectly normal summers, occasionally wondering why he never saw that cool flight simulator again. He went on to study aerospace engineering, eventually designing propulsion systems that would have looked remarkably familiar to certain galactic observers. But that, as they say, is another story. The Zephyrian Empire learned a valuable lesson about the dangers of underestimating species based on technological development level alone. They also learned that sometimes the most sophisticated security systems in the galaxy are no match for a bored 12-year-old with summer vacation and an unshakable confidence that anything cool-looking was probably meant to be played with. And somewhere in the classified files of the Galactic Intelligence Archive, there exists a video recording of a human child performing barrel rolls through an asteroid field while providing running commentary that includes the phrase, "This is better than any video game ever." The recording is used in advanced xenopsychology courses as an example of how first contact scenarios can go sideways in ways that no amount of training can prepare you for. The universe, it turns out, has a sense of humor. It also has 12-year-olds, which amounts to roughly the same thing.